This is basically as raced. It's a 429 Hemi, and it runs. That's Leonard, and that's the same lathe and the same bench.
This came from Dan Gurney in 1969.
That thing turned sideways. Now I'm looking out the side glass knowing we're gonna crash.
We're at the Wood Brothers Museum in Stuart, Virginia, where they have the most comprehensive collection of artifacts and stories of any race team museum we have ever filmed to date.
That's it?
Yeah, this is it. This is all we use. So it's basically like you're talking to us and I just hold this here.
That's
and
easy.
Where did the Wood Brothers start and where do you guys fall into that?
Our dad drove and Leonard was the mechanic. Delano and Ray Lee helped. They come on Sundays and helped at night. They used to work at night a lot because they all had other jobs. Our dad was a sawmiller. Leonard worked at a Ford dealership. Ray Lee, he was into heavy equipment like bulldozers and things, and Delano worked at a sawmill.
So you see all the buildings over there. Where did that shop on stilts come from? Was it already in the family or was it purchased to use for racing?
Daddy rented it. So I'll call it the first place was the home place. They had like a shed for 2 cars under a beech tree. And the beech tree is where they would throw a chain over a limb to pull the engine out.
Is that the actual tree limb crane mechanism?
Okay. When Daddy cleaned out the old shop, he put stuff on carts. Uncle Delano comes in here one day. He'd been back there rumbling around. He rolls his cart up here and he says, "You know what this is, don't you?" And I was kind of a smart aleck. "Yeah, it's an engine hoist." "It's not just an engine hoist, it's the engine hoist." Okay. Changed my attitude right quick. And I said, "I should get Daddy to go up in the woods and cut a tree limb down, make it look like it's growing out of the wall." He had a guy cut that out of the beech tree. So that's a limb out of the beech tree.
The same tree.
The tree.
Wow.
It's not the limb, because the limb is that big around now. But that's a hoist. And Eddie and John got the name off of it. And I think that company went out of business in 1928. So the hoist had to have been used when they got it in 50 area. First shop when they outgrew the home place was this one, which Daddy rented in 1950s, late 50s, like 53 or 4. And in 56, Daddy built this shop.
So this building that we're standing in right now was the race shop after 96, between like 96 and 03.
We moved in here fall of 95. Our dad, basically, this was his playroom.
It was on him to make the museum part of it. We was working on race cars and building cars to go to Daytona for that year, and he just started hanging pictures in here. And all these pictures, I don't know where they came from. I don't know where they were until they got in here. Our mom kept everything picture-wise or any articles or anything like that. She kept all that, and he framed them too.
Every one of them, pretty much.
Yeah, but he would come in here with had him a ladder and had him a little hammer and I'll show you the thing he measured. You did it. He didn't have a tape measure. He had a carpenter's rule. There was his hammer.
So it's brand new, you can see. Not.
We think it might have been his mother's hammer.
Okay, show me.
Yeah, so that's how you.
That was Daddy's tape measure.
Wow.
Did he use that for everything?
Yeah, everything.
Well, at least you didn't, when you stuck it up there, you didn't have to worry about it flopping back over you.
You didn't think about it. That works better than you might think.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But that's what carpenters used back in the day.
I think it's interesting. There's a lot of stuff on the walls that aren't even Wood Brothers related, just other significant figures of racing.
Friends.
I guess that's pretty cool.
Just whatever. Like this is a case kind of honoring Neil Bonnet. Got 3 of his uniforms, 1 of his helmets, just things that were related to him.
Kyle Petty.
Yeah, and there's Kyle. That helmet actually was the one Kyle used at Richmond, the first race he ever won. That's a picture of him down there at the bottom in the car with that helmet on. When you keep stuff like that, you want to have a picture to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just and we've tried to do that.
So that's Kyle and Adam and Richard.
This picture right here is Adam Petty and John and Austin Petty when Kyle was driving our car.
Oh wow. So you guys are like two family organizations, and you were kind of like,
Yeah, they said it would
Tight.
never. They said it would never work when Kyle came to drive here, but that's probably the most fun I've ever had. So he was here from '85 through '88, and that's probably the most fun we had racing.
was it because Kyle was a fun guy, or what made that fun?
Dude, Kyle's Kyle. I mean, I don't really know Kyle very well or not, but what you see is Kyle.
Huh.
He grew up like we did, in and around it. And the funny thing, he would drive with us a lot of times to the racetrack, and we'd talk about, at dinner time. How was dinner time at your house? Well, it was at 5 o'clock. We called it supper, not dinner. Dinner was lunch. And they were the same way. Things that was talked about, things that you got in trouble with, was the same.
Are those some of Leonard's RC cars? Mm-hmm. We've heard that, because in the Petty Museum, there's one of his RC cars in there.
Yep. And that's how we came up with the idea of taking the body off of one, because all these have bodies on them. And we gave one to Richard Petty and gave one to Dale Inman. And we went to lunch with Dale, and we came back, and Richard had took the body off and had it displayed like this, because it's got a plaque on it. We're handcrafted by Leonard Wood, and it would have been for Richard Petty. This one's for us, for the Wood Brothers Museum. We said, we need to do that too.
Did he want to see how it worked?
I think he wanted to show the plaque off of who made it. Because see, Leonard, he engraves his name on it. See, Richard's name would have been right there. That was it for Richard Petty, at Dale Inman's, whatever, and Leonard would have signed it underneath.
Should we get Leonard? Leonard's not here today, by the way. Just worked out that way, but we get him up here to do that.
But we get him up here for about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
He's got a dinner thing he's got to go to, but
All right, so that's a 427 tunnel port. There's something wrong with it. It's the reason it's on a stand. But it was in a 63 Galaxy replica that we did. When the pandemic hit, we were looking for something for Leonard to do, and he built a half scale of this engine. And it's at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan right now. And so what he did, our machinist Benny Belcher and Leonard handmade all this stuff with like Bridgeports and lathes, no CNC, no digital printing, none of that. And basically like this little intake was made out of a block of aluminum like that. So the block of aluminum weighs 30 pounds. This little intake weighs 6. So there was 24 pounds of shavings come out of that.
Wow.
So then the other thing he does is makes little bitty carburetors. So they were made out of those blocks.
That's so
And these
cool.
will run on an engine, like a 390. And those were made from that right there. So then we go right here. So this is like 1970 carburetor. Kel Yarborough would have sat on pole at Daytona, run 194 mile an hour. So he made a half scale of it. He actually made 4 of these, 3 of these, and 2 of these. That's called an Autolite carburetor or Ford carburetor. That's from the late 50s. That's like my dad would have raced on the beach.
How long did it take him to make one of these? Just like, you said, make a bunch of them. How long does one take?
They would make, the machinist would take and make a body, but he would machine all 4 bodies at one time, or 3 bodies, ever how many he's making. Because the setup, making fixtures took a long time, setup took a long time. So I'm going to say start to finish, probably 6 or 7 weeks maybe.
Wow.
Because this one came out of a block of aluminum just like that. Because this one has base plate on it that would have the butterflies in it. This one does not have a base plate on it, so it had to come out of a much larger block of aluminum. Let's do a thing on trophies.
Okay, yeah.
We're gonna walk around. Is that okay?
Yeah, we
All
like
right, so
walking around.
What I'll show you is, okay, we've got different trophies. Some are real, was the one. Some are a few are replicas, whatever. But that's a Elliott Sadler Bristol Win trophy. That's a copy. That's a Buddy Baker's last win, Firecracker 400 at 1983. That's a real trophy. This is a Blaney trophy, duplicate of Blaney's win at Pocono in 2017. These three are Marvin Pants trophies up here. These, and the tall one behind it is Marvin Pants trophy. We can go up and look at the front of it, but these are Daddy's trophies. Our Trevor Bayne duplicate trophy from Daytona 500 2011 goes here, but it's NASCAR Hall of Fame, as well as our Tiny Lund 1963 Daytona 500 trophy. They're both at the Hall of Fame. So what we did to fill the case up while it's gone, these are dated 1952 and 54. So that's the oldest dated trophies that we have.
They don't get much older than that, do they?
Well, Daddy started in 1950 and he won in 50, but the trophies were not marked, I don't think. But that's the oldest ones that we have that are dated 52 and 54. But they were winning, you know. Here is a Pearson, David Pearson trophy, Cale Yarborough trophy, A.J. Foyt Ontario Motor Speedway qualifying trophy, pole trophy. I think it's a Cale Yarborough trophy, A.J. Foyt Daytona 500 trophy, a Neil Bonnet World 600 1981, 80 or 81. A.J. Foyt, that was the second year of Ontario, it had been 1972. He won 71 and 72. He won the first two out there at Ontario, which that track's long gone. Right here, that's another A.J. Foyt pole trophy. An A.J. Foyt pole trophy from Texas World Speedway that was in College Station, Texas. I think it's a parking lot for the, whatever that last big flood they had down there, or hurricane. It's a parking lot for rental cars now. That's a Neil Bonnet Atlanta trophy. That's a Dan Gurney Riverside trophy, Riverside, California. He won 4 races in our car. He won 5 Riversides, but 4 in our car.
Is that with the 121 car?
Yeah. And so then we go back over here. These kind of offer trophies of some of Jordan's stuff and some of John's stuff. This is some of more of Daddy's stuff here. See, you can see the older trophies, but they're not dated. You know, they look the part of being old, but they're not dated.
So they didn't even put the race on it. They just had a bunch of trophies that looked like that, and they'd pull one out of a box, say, "Here you go."
And then there's a modified in the back that Donnie Allison won a race in, Cardinal 300 at 1967 at Martinsville. That's a trophy that goes with it. Most of these are Daddy's. This is a A.J. Foyt Daytona 500 1972 Governor's Cup trophy. Neil Bonnet Dover trophy. Daddy's, more of Daddy's trophies. There's one in here that's it's a Neil Bonnet Southern 500 1981ish, I believe. Daddy was most popular driver at Bowman Gray Stadium in 54. He was most popular driver of NASCAR. There's a trophy, it may be at the Hall of Fame, in like 57 or 8.
What's with the Steelers football?
Okay, Steelers fan. Next.
No, I grew up in Pittsburgh, but I wouldn't call myself a Steelers fan. I was just wondering what that's doing in a race shop.
Some kid gave it to us, but I was a.
We went to see him. We drove to Steelers games from here.
Yeah, I used to go to Three Rivers. My wife and I, we'd drive up here and drive up to a Monday night game, get tickets.
Wow.
And then drive home, and of course work on Tuesday. But I've got to get back to collecting stuff.
I was at the last game at Three Rivers when I was like 5. I don't remember it, but I've seen pictures of me being there.
Okay, you know who Lynn Swan is, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, that bonnet was in a celebrity Grand Prix thing in Long Beach, Toyota Grand Prix, and Lynn Swan was his co-driver.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew I was a Steeler fan, so he took the uniform off of Lynn Swan and right there just packed it up, threw it in a suitcase, and gave it to me. So that's why that got there.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
How did Lynn do driving a race car?
I don't remember. I think more of that was just having fun, but a lot of people did that deal back then.
And is that how Terry Bradshaw got into being a race fan and owning a team?
I don't know where Bradshaw, he was from Louisiana,
Yeah.
I think. Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Rocky Blyer, that whole Joe Green.
Yeah.
I can name them all.
So here's an example of the five brothers, except Ray Lee has been cut out of another picture and stuck in there instead of Cale Yarborough.
This is the
That's
back
Cale,
in the day
that's Cale
Photoshop.
Yarborough from there down. So there again, that's a homemade pic. That's, what do you call it, AI? Whatever that is. Or
That's funny.
Old school
Photoshop.
Photoshop.
Yeah, whatever that is.
It's like you can see now that proportionally his torso is like way bigger than everybody else's.
If you didn't say anything, I wouldn't have noticed.
No, you wouldn't notice.
I think that picture's at Martinsville as well.
We have like a bouquet of checker flags from different eras. One over here with a Firebird on it. That's like from 63. That was a pure Firebird, was that was called. And the 76 stuff, and then on around to the Sunoco on the far side.
It used to be Pure Oil Company, which led to Unical. And later on, Sunoco took over. But that goes back to the early 60s.
Off topic, but I thought that this was really cool.
Okay, so Uncle Leonard, when he was 14-ish, he carved these out of wood.
That's wood.
Yep. And he would carve them out, the little ones, and sell them for $1 or whatever.
I was looking at that earlier and I didn't realize it was wood.
He make these little chassis for him too.
Okay, so he found that. That's only been here like 3 or 4 years. He found it cleaning up. But that's a chassis that he made. See, it has little bitty springs on it.
Yeah.
It was made out of, I'll call it scrap steel. That's how we would have started something like this.
Did he learn how to solder stuff together and
Oh, he can do anything.
like, that's just really cool, like the ingenuity and how it evolved.
Yeah.
But like these, I mean, like this right here, that's a welding rod, that what looks like chrome.
Mm-hmm.
That's a welding rod that he's made look like chrome. And like the let's just say the bumper on this one, the bumper on this one, that was made out of like a 1-inch block of aluminum.
You see, these were welding rods?
That right there was welding rods.
Wow.
I don't know how to describe that other than that's really freaking cool.
He made the wheels.
Exhaust pipes,
Yeah.
tailpipes.
We were in the RC cars. Lynn and I were in the late 70s before it was cool back here.
Mm-hmm.
We would go to California and see them out there because that's where you could buy all this stuff. And they were 8th scale. Most stuff now is 12th scale. But these were 8th. They were quite a bit bigger. And I got a couple of them in the back there. But they were, anything we broke, he could fix it, make another one. You know, they used to have these little plastic carburetors on the on the engines, and you break that pretty quickly. And so he made some aluminum carburetors. I think there's one over here in the showcase.
I can imagine
Carburetor.
you guys must have been pretty worldly compared to the other kids your age back then who this area is pretty isolated now. I can only imagine what it was like at that time.
That little engine under there.
He made that carburetor to replace a plastic one?
Mm-hmm. And the tailpipe. And the heat sink.
And the little rods back there.
And there's, see those little rods, the little connecting rods?
Oh yeah.
We got in this,
Oh my
it's
god.
gonna be a drag race. A friend of ours, named Paul Covington, he had an RC shop over in King, North Carolina, and we were going to just like drag race my car against his, and of course I blew mine up, stretched the rod, so Leonard made those rods are made out of a titanium valve out of a race car. And it's got a pressed in brass bushing.
It's so small I can't even see the
Yeah,
bushing.
you can't even see it, but yeah. So
We had a pretty good advantage on that kind of stuff.
You probably had the most hopped up RC cars on
Yeah, we did.
this
Yeah,
anywhere.
they'd run about 70 miles an hour.
That's insane.
All right, let's do shirts.
Yeah, there's like the density of interesting in this room is very high.
Okay, these three are from the 50s. And then this group here is from the 60s. And actually, That was one of them that they wore at Indianapolis when they pitted Jimmy Clark in 1965 and won the Indy 500. So that's what we pattern our shirts after today. The second year they went to Indy was with Dan Gurney for an All-American Eagle. That was a shirt they wore there, but that was he wrecked on a first or second lap, so that didn't go as well. These start into our pure later days, which goes through this up to like 79, 80. And then we had Warner Hodgson for a couple years.
How'd that go?
He wanted to run all. Warner wanted to run all the races. We weren't ready for that. So after a period of time, he left, and then we got Valvoline.
Is that whenever he went to juniors?
Yes.
Okay.
Because he took Neil Bonnet.
Oh.
Neil Bonnet went with him, and we got Buddy Baker. You know, so we both moved on. We're still friends with. We have one of our cars back here. Warner passed away several years ago, and his sons. He has two sons, Aaron and Justin Hodgson, and we get along great with those. Everybody, you know, we get along with everybody.
Why does that shirt have a Shelby tag?
Shelby, that's whoever made the shirts, I guess. Because back in the day, like all these are what's called henchmen. That's an Indianapolis company. To be honest with you, that's the first time I've ever seen that Shelby. I paid attention to it. See, those are like bowling shirts. So that was made by, what's that called? Hilton?
Yeah, they got bowling pins on them.
Yeah.
I never noticed. That's funny.
Shirt. Yeah, that, and then so most of the stuff here is Simpson stuff. Made most of these.
So does that mean the lineage of the NASCAR crew shirt could be traced back to bowling shirts?
Well, no, it traced back to these.
What were these? They weren't bowling shirts, were they?
No, but they were henchmen. And actually, when we did a thing in late 2010, when 2011, Daddy got nominated to the Hall of Fame class at 12. And so we ran a race with Daddy's, I think the hood's back there. Daddy's head is on the hood. And we had new ones made. And so what we did, we called henchmen. And the guy says, listen, we still have the patterns for those. This was 45 years later. So he made us using the same cloth. The only thing he couldn't do, that's termed big loop embroidery. He said they still had the machine, but everybody that knew how to run it was either gone or dead. So it was a smooth embroidery, I'll call it modern embroidery. Was the only difference. But we wear them like the throwback races at Darlington. We usually pull those out. So they look the part.
So those henchman shirts, what was their origin? Like,
They made fire suits.
Were they? I mean, like that style shirt. What did it come from first? Like now, I'm curious about where that type of shirt originated from.
Bowling shirts.
Well, they're square cut on the bottom,
Yeah.
kind of like these.
I think that's how they started.
Like he said, these Hilton ones got a bowling pin in the collar,
Yeah.
and this right here's got Shelby.
Yeah, henchmen from Indianapolis, and they made uniforms for all the Indy guys. And
Fire suits and stuff.
you know the fire suits like the prettiest one.
I'm gonna have to do some digging into that now. It's like
Okay, there's
a picture of Pearson.
there's an old one.
The ones with it's got the collar like on this side probably.
or it's
like
just the stripe
Pearson.
down the one side.
Yeah, those were henchmen.
Okay.
That's where that started. To go back to this red and white shirt from the 60s, this was during the Ford factory days. They had all the cars, and each team, like our dad's colors were red and white. Lorenzen, which was Holman Moody car, was blue and white. Banjo Matthews was orange and white. Nelson Stacy and Dick Hutcherson, they were yellow and white, but they're all this look. You back and look at some of the old pictures, you can pick up on that. But that's kind of where that
There's a
started.
forward look, sort of.
So the Ford, they like the same
colors.
template but with different colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they went through. I think it happened in '63. Our dad and him and Leonard were kind of famous for having candy apple red cars, white top, white bottom, red top. Well, that started in '63 with Ford as the factory colors. They all, okay, you ever hear of George Barris?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, George Barris had candy colors. He's the one who started all that. So if you go back and look, our dad's cars were red. The Holman Moody cars with Lorenzen was pearl white with blue. Ned Jarrett, it was candy blue. Then it was candy orange, and there were all those candy colors. All the factory cars had
Candy lavender.
lavender. Fireball Roberts, that was a lavender. They weren't just purple. Really, really hard to paint because it was lacquer, and it was really, really thin. You would have to put like I remember on the cars that were our dad had, you put a silver base on it, and then you'd mix gold dust in with the red, and it was just super, super thin, and you'd put like 30 coats on it, sand it, wait a day, put more and more, and you finally build it up, and you would buff it because it wasn't like enamel or like we have Emeron now, urethanes that you don't have to buff out, but in those days you had to buff them out, which is a lot of work.
So you really hope your guys don't destroy that car.
Yeah, that's a far cry from just blasting something with single stage and putting stickers on it and sending it out there.
Exactly.
Is that kind of when cars started to turn from the pieces of equipment to do a job to making them look nicer?
Yeah, now the wraps.
Yeah.
Everything's wrapped.
This is where having two guys like you guide this is great, because you would walk into this room and it's like, oh, look at all those old uniforms, all these trophies, little parts. That's cool, but you got stories behind everything you look at.
Yeah, that's my coat right there. It's right up there.
See, I love when you have pictures to photo match stuff.
I would say I was 4 or 5 years old, and then the one with my name on it, that was my first ever crew shirt. Now I thought I had really made it then. Wear that to the racetrack, then you go to Waffle House or somewhere after the race. You still had your shirt on. You was cool and all that.
Was that your outfit too?
I think this one's Lynn's, and it's yours.
It's me.
Yeah, I think
That's
right
you there.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even notice the picture. That's crazy. You have the shoes too.
Mama didn't throw away anything.
Yeah, she kept everything.
Daddy didn't either. Here, and let's look under here. That's I'll call it a go-kart that Leonard fixed when he was 14. Has a Johnson washing machine engine, gasoline washing machine engine. That was when he was 14. So when he was about 80, he built this one. And this is some pictures of the way, like, he can't wait to see if it'll run to finish it. He's got to, as soon as he gets a motor on it and it'll crank, he's got to in it. But he made the body. This is different pictures of the body, because he hand formed all of it out of aluminum. And it's about a half scale of Jim Clark's Lotus.
You can get a little moon eye gauges printed out on there and everything.
It's so detailed, even like powder coating the wheels and like the center locks.
Okay, so like those.
It's functional. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so basically that, he made like a circle with a threaded hole and then welded ears on it to make it look like a knockoff. We need to show them what you found a month ago. The hammer.
So when they went to Indy, they didn't change tires. They ran that whole race, as the pit crew for that. We got pictures in fact to show you, but they ran that whole 500 miles and made 2 pit stops, but they did not change tires. Looking through some old toolboxes and just wasn't looking, just stumbled onto it. Found 2 of these, and those are the hammers that would have been used at Indy to change wheels with.
The other one's in the back, and it's beat up where they used it in practice. That one's kind of untouched, but it's got Indy 500 on it.
So I asked you
you
questions.
can
Well,
see
y'all
a little
didn't
bit
change
right there.
tires. What
That
did
is
you
awesome.
need that for? Well, they had them here because they practiced before they went up there if they had to change tires. But it's got Indianapolis stamped on it.
That is awesome. I'd imagine that all those wrap balls are down there, or all the vinyl that came off of a car wadded up into a ball.
The big ones are a whole car. So it's about, I want to say 7 pounds, maybe 8.
It's a good way to visually demonstrate how much of it is actually on the whole car.
Well, just somebody rolled one up one time and it, ooh, I gotta have one of those. So then we sent different ones to motorcraft people, you know, and what you do, you start wrapping, you know, wadding it up and wrapping it, and then you kind of save the good looking part for the outside.
That particular wrap was on the car at, I think we ran Bristol with it, but it was a Virginia Tech car.
You know, just like that car right in there.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'll have to remember that.
There was a time there was a big deal about how much weight paint was on a car. You know, you gotta say weight, and all that.
It's in a wrap now.
There was a time that it was thought that a wrap was lighter than paint. I don't know whether it is or not, but you know, it got to where there was no Bondo at all on these cars. You know, just very, very little. And you kind of count that as paint, but now they wrap everything, and you know, it's kind of relative. Everybody's wraps weigh the same.
Are we ready to go to the main part of the museum with all the cars in it?
All right, let's stop out here. We'll talk about the
Okay, yeah, I mean,
winter's wall.
I cleared out. Oh, there he is.
Let's go do this.
Well.
Now, this is Leonard.
How you, sir?
Nice to meet you, Mitchell.
Hello, Logan. Nice
How
to
you?
meet you.
What, about 6'5"?
Yeah, dead on. You're good.
Yeah. Let's show them the little motor back here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's got a dinner engagement tonight he's got to go to, so we'll do this and
We'll come back.
Okay.
we'll come back.
Yeah, no problem.
You need to see this.
We were hoping that we'd get to. This is great.
A 429 Hemi half scale.
I just had to stop for a second and say that this is one of the most immersive and interesting filming experiences that we have ever had. The Wood Brothers history is just amazing. How diverse it is and how long they have been continually operating. It just goes to show you how much people can love racing and how much that racing can benefit your life and your relationships and your friendships. It's a way to really find yourself, I think. And we don't want that to ever change. And I'd just like to thank Pennzoil for helping us make these videos. Pennzoil makes a conscious effort to support racing history and make sure there is a future for racing too. And you know what? Maybe you never really thought about it, but there are plenty of brands out there who do not care about you. They do not care about what's important to you, and they don't care about racing. And when there are any brands out there, no matter what it is, when they go out of their way to support the things that we like, I think we owe them the support that they give us. It's a mutual relationship. Everybody wins that way. But remember this, next time you're due for an oil change and you walk into Advanced Auto Parts to get some oil, go over and get you some Pennzoil. My personal choice is Pennzoil Platinum and Ultra Platinum. Whenever you're doing your oil change of Pennzoil, take a picture and tag me in it on any social platform you can find me in, and I will share it. So now we can see the car part of the museum and what was the former race shop. Was this like a truck bay here?
This is where we parked the hauler. And then that door right there leads into the setup room.
Okay, so that's another one of Leonard's projects right there. Half scale of Henry Ford's first race car. And there's a video NASCAR did back in about June. It's about a 20-minute video.
Who were the kids?
That's Eddie's grandkids.
That's Riley and Bailey.
Oh, that's awesome. With the stick-on mustaches.
Yeah, they had little uniforms, little suits. And
Once Riley got in position, he would get tired and fall off, and he'd still be in his. You just pick him up, and his legs are still in the same place. Pick him up, set him back on.
they took a picture right outside here in the field. Those Decklids came from Riverside. This came from Dan Gurney in 1969. The car was raced at Riverside. It was a full candy apple red car. These were Kales, which is the white with the red top, and they were on 68 and 69 Cyclones.
How did these end up getting kept? Did they get stuck in a shed somewhere and pull back out, or?
The basement of the old shop that was a shop from 56 till 96. They were just down there. We have no idea, and they got caught in a flood. Had like a 100-year flood up here. That shop's on the Mayo River. Yeah, and it flooded, and it just everything that was in there. It just wiped it out. But these were laying on a table or something.
One
down
of them's
there.
full of mud.
Yeah, there's one that's full of mud. Steel. Yeah, I mean they're the real deal.
We could probably credit Daddy for saving them.
Yeah, he kept a lot of stuff, like a lot of this stuff that you'll see in a minute. The old machinery, he kept a lot of that. 'Cause when we moved.
Yeah.
Like kids would do now, just leave it and go. We did the same thing.
This is we blew this up. This is a Century Club certificate. Like when Daddy would race on the beach, if you run over 100 mile an hour, you were in the Century Club. So whatever your speed was, like Daddy run almost 140, so the needle winds up at your speed.
Oh,
this is like, a 8x10 piece of paper. We blew it up because actually that's Sir Malcolm Campbell, the bluebird in the background. You see, that's the beach with the waves rolling in. But that was a Century Club certificate.
That's cool.
And we only found that about 2016, rolled up in newspapers. So that was done in 58.
That's
The thing
insane.
where we just stumble into stuff.
That's got to be really cool. It's like you get an inadvertent treasure hunt sometimes.
Are we talking about old fire suits? That's about a 60, 65-ish, 66-ish.
Was this done with the intent to be fire resistant somehow, or is it just like wear long sleeve cotton clothes and it helps?
Okay, so earlier on, I'll say early 60s, they made them out of some type of cloth, and then there was a fire retardant chemical that you soaked them in. I don't know what it was. Now again, I was 8 years old, so I'm talking about what I heard. But I'm thinking Fireball Roberts was allergic to whatever they soaked him in, and he had asthma, I think. And so he didn't soak his, and then he wound up getting burned really badly at Charlotte in 64.
Yeah.
And then died later, about 40 days later, I think.
In July.
But anyway, that was an early day uniform.
Was that a pit board from the basement too?
That one right there used to be at Daytona when they had sheds for like the 24-hour race.
Yeah.
And you turn it around, it's got something else on the other side.
I believe it was the year Cale won in 68, the summer as a firecracker. And that was on top of it, just like that. And I got up on top of the thing after the race, and we took it, and we brought it home in the hall. I don't know how we got it home. I think we rolled it up on, stuck it up
Stuck it up under the car,
up
probably.
on the car. We had a ramp truck at the time, and when we got back, we put it on our mom and dad's front porch, just like it set, and it was there for years. I mean, you ride by and it had 21 Mercury on it, and when this started, we brought it over here, but it was over there. It probably over on our porch for 20 years.
I think it's got something different on the back, so they would flip it around. So we probably took something that wasn't supposed to have taken it.
They just kept reusing
We've
them.
got a. Need to tell them a story about the AJ Foyt blackboard that found its way back here from 72 until 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Probably.
The guy took it, he was 14 years old, and they won a race in 72, Daytona 500. They went to Victory Circle, and this guy, 14 years old, he jumps over the fence and takes it with him.
He and his dad had a pickup.
And so he was from up within an hour of Loudon. So he was up in New Hampshire area, and he called, got to feeling bad about it, said he needed to go home. So he gave it back to us.
Wow.
So we
Still
sent
got
our
the
show car.
shock on it from
Yeah.
when Delano wrote the dollar mark.
Huh.
Just found it on video. You can go on YouTube, and it's it. I mean, there's no question. And nobody here, Leonard, my dad. I mean, I was at the race too, but no one remembered the pit board getting gone. 'Cause you had two boards. You had one that said pit, and you had another one that they would write on. We didn't have radios back then.
Blue Streak Stock Car Special is what that's called. With a Holman Moody double center wheel.
What determined whether you guys were running Mercuries or Fords? Was it just the body of the car, or did they want you to use a Mercury?
Okay, so there again, I was a kid back then, but I'm thinking the way it went was they ran Fords up until 1968-ish, and it was points, manufacturer points, and they figured out they could split it off and run Ford and Mercury and kind of have two shots at it.
Huh.
And so they switched us and Junior Johnson, he had Leroy Yarborough driving his car. We had Cale. And Yarborough is what he was, not Yarborough. Cale was Yarborough, Leroy was Yarborough.
Huh.
So anyway, they split them off, and then whenever Ford pulled out of racing, like in 1970-ish, then we had Mercury's. We just stayed with them until we got to the little Thunderbird, we call it.
Huh. And we were just talking to Greg Moore about Bobby Allison's 79 Daytona car.
Okay, so Hodgson was on their car for a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. Aaron and Justin had was a Bobby Allison car. It's actually, I believe, in Daytona in a museum.
Is it the?
No, it's in Darlington Museum, is where it's at. So back in the day, Daddy, Leonard would move the engine back. Like this one's got the engine moved back about 20 inches. So in the picture you can see Daddy's sitting in the back seat area. So everything got slid back. And what that did, it put more weight on the rear wheels and then got better traction. So actually would lift the left front off the ground as it come off the corner.
Was there a rule made against that eventually, or did everybody do
Well, it
this?
was a modified, so it was run what you brung. You know, Daddy did not like it, although they won the track championship with it, and he won everywhere he went with it, but he didn't like it because driving the back seat was awkward, and it was not his favorite car at all. But after that 1 year they sold it, and then the next one he's back up front. So then Leonard made a half scale of that. Now again, that one's hand formed out of aluminum. The grill is made out of 3/16 welding rods. He's got a little pop top there where you can get in it. That's made out of welding rods.
Makes good use of welding rods for things, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
That's
And
funny.
Then like the emblem on top, that was a block of aluminum, but he made that.
Is that how the real hood opened too?
Yeah.
Huh.
This one is a 61 Starliner. So this was now again, replica, so don't confuse what I'm saying. This was the last car that Daddy would have got from a dealership and stripped stuff out of it, and put roll bars in it and went to the racetrack because it still had chrome on it. Evidence with pictures. That still has the chrome on it right there because that's the car.
Is that the distinction then? Whenever they became purpose-built race cars, they didn't have chrome anymore.
Well, not exactly. So you got to get on up to about 63. So I'll work our way into that. So they basically just paint over the numbers. Now, if Daddy went somewhere and tore a piece of chrome off, he didn't fix the chrome. You know, just have a piece on the door missing. That didn't make it run any faster. You know, tires or more engine, that's what made it run better. So we go from that using chrome, and we go until about 1962, and they run what was called a notchback, and it was not very fast on speedways like Daytona. And so Daddy and him go down there. Bill Amick was the driver, and he winds up flipping it in practice. And when he did, all the chrome off the windshield's all sticking off of it, and the chrome tore off his side. So that was February '62. So this is a replica of what was called a Star Lift. So it's a 62 convertible with a 61 hardtop mated on it.
Huh.
And when this car shows up, this is June of 62, that's when the chrome tape shows up, because they didn't go buy chrome to put on it. They just, well, let's just use tape, make it look like it.
Huh.
And it was a common practice with like at Holman Moody, like a Fred Lorenzo car was done the same way, because you can see like there's like little dents
Yeah.
where the chrome was. Let's see, all right, see right
The
there.
holes where it would have
Yeah,
bolted
so,
the backside.
so they just covered them up. And then again, we made these replicas exact. I mean, if you find something wrong with it, you show me, because you won't. So then we go on to 63.
That's interesting that they that kind of is almost like the predecessor of having sticker headlights is having sticker chrome.
Okay, so then the chrome is on these, but there's no holes. So they filled the holes up. So about that time frame, 63-ish, around there, is when they started getting cars what they term body in white.
Okay.
And that would be basically, I think the Galaxies, I think they came off the Norfolk assembly line from Ford. And what they did, they would get them to a certain point and then don't finish them. And they would pull them off, and I guess somebody sprayed them white so they wouldn't rust before they left. So they would get a body in white. So that was an unfinished car that didn't have all the door panels in it. Because see, well, actually, I'm gonna back up. This is an earlier version. It would have had door panels in it. See, this one has door panels in it.
Mm-hmm.
The 61 back there has a bench seat in it. The bucket seats didn't come out till 62, so they don't show up. And then whatever you see then, okay, it's got it to their own or whatever. So the Pearson car over there, it's got a van seat in it, Rostrum van seat. Also, up until about let's just say 60, up through 61, 62, and 63, the tail lights were still in them. See, that's a stock panel. That's the way that would have raced. The tail lights came off the cars about the Darlington race in the fall, so let's call it Labor Day of 63. So that's the last you see of those. So that's how we know, okay, if we took pictures, we had detailed pictures of Tiny Lund's race winning car. If it's got tail lights in it, everything behind it, or older than it, it's got tail lights. If it doesn't, then you move on. That's how we know what we need to do to make them accurate replicas.
And it's neat because these are the kinds of details that you can't just search up online and find a distinct answer
All
for.
right, so let's start over here. When we started putting the pictures up, and we had this old desk from over the old shop. See, that's our sister Kim sitting at the desk. That's the filing cabinet. That's the chair.
It's everything.
That's the desk.
The briefcase.
I found the briefcase. I found the phone. And then the pictures. We started to panel this whole corner one time like that, but we never got around to it. We've got all the pictures. All right. So here's the best example. Curtis Turner picture on the end.
Yes, this would be awesome.
Okay, so here's the Dan Gurney picture right there. See, we've got all the pictures. And we have all the frames. So we should do that, we just hadn't got around to it.
Absolutely. That's
recreating the office.
it is. That's exactly what I would do.
Got a candy
That's
jar,
awesome.
a cookie tin, I guess you call it.
It's like little kids scratch my name in something stuff. That is awesome.
And then Daddy come in one day because Daddy was a sawmiller to start with, and he come in with that saw blade, and it had a tooth broken off of it. So we had Leonard weld the tooth on it, but you can't find which one it is. And then we bead blasted it and painted it black. And then Buzz McKim, who used to be the historian to NASCAR Hall of Fame, he retired several years ago, moved back to Florida, but he's a sign painter as a hobby. I'm talking about like with a wooden box with a stick with a pencil eraser on it, with a Campbell soup can to mix his thinner and stuff up. He painted that for Daddy. He asked Daddy to pick his 5 favorite cars. The blue and the convertible, that was Daddy's overall favorite car. And Eddie was just talking about fixing a 56 Ford. That's what we would make it look like.
Huh.
That's a 57, I think, right there, and that's that back seater. And that would be the 50 for the first one. So it's the same guy that does all the lettering. All these are, when we make replicas, everything is hand painted just like it would have been.
I wanted to ask you about that because I saw the hand lettering on the half scale Lotus out there.
Yeah, all these cars are like that. Like I say, that we have a beautiful 61 Sunliner, which is a convertible. It's at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. You can step over if you want. It's a NASCAR Hall of Fame plus a 54 Ford. It's NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Now, how did they pick fonts back then? Like the number font? Was there like a book of ones that you would reference, or did he just invent that and replicated it every time? I've always wondered how that works.
All right, let's finish this and then we'll talk about that.
Okay.
So then we found pictures that were taken in around 65 or 6. So that's Daddy, but that's the drill press.
Oh yeah.
All right, that right there is this brake riveter. All right. So Daddy, we go here. That's Daddy with the bandsaw. We go right here.
I love this. This is great because when we go to these old shops and we see a piece of machinery, I try to find pictures to match them to, and you guys already did all that.
So that's going down through there. The whole thing has a brake riveter back there. But this right here, the bench. Is that car? That's the bench. Now it had that added onto it later, but that's the bench in the picture. That's Daddy's first toolbox.
I'm just like, if you're just like cleaning out a shed or something and you find this piece of wood, how do you know it's like that was his first toolbox? Like, how do you?
He told me. So you can credit him with saving 95% of what you see.
That's amazing.
I mean, like they left up to Eddie and I, we got to clean out. Eddie would do wiring. So you use soldering gun. He'd catch a soldering gun that like wouldn't, crust you up and, half work or something. He'd go out back of the shop, pitch it in the creek. Daddy would go down there and see it, get him a stick and pull it back out. So this is a lathe. That's Leonard. And that's the same lathe and the same bench. Because see, he made the bench for that. But this lathe, he credits for all the tapered spacers and stuff that was used under the carburetors in the manifolds back in the 60s and the early 70s on those Hemis. All of them are made on this machine right here. So this was the biggest machinery they had in 66. That car right there?
Yeah.
That car over there?
Is that the car or is that a replica?
No, that's the car.
Okay.
Leonard built it in 66, and they raced it a couple of years when Ford boycotted over the engine rules. Like Chrysler Hemi would come in and they allowed it, but not the Ford Camry. And so the Ford was boycott for a while, and they said, go do something else for a little bit so we get it straightened out. And let's just say a month or two later, okay, all right, we're back going. So they run it on and off, and then sold it after a couple of years. It got wrecked and destroyed. About 30 years later, somebody finds it in a junkyard, restores it. Ray Evernham found it in Richmond in about 2010 or 11. And he told us where it was at, and if we wanted it, go get it, but if it didn't, he wanted it. So we wound up, we didn't want it at that time. We weren't into our history stuff yet. So we bought it back from Ray about 2 years ago. Spoke about Daddy paying $50 in 1950. So he numbered his first car 50. So that's a 38 Ford. And he gets in an accident and bends an axle, breaks the axle coming home, and falls down, starts sparking. And they had gas cans in the car, so it caught fire. So it was almost over before it got started. And so when he went back, he put a 16 on it. Well, later, he goes to 22. He runs his first Grand National race, which is what we now know as Cup, at Martinsville on dirt. And that's with a 53 Lincoln. So that's Daddy's first Grand National race. That's why sometimes it shows up that we've been in NASCAR since 53. Well, that's running a Grand National car, because Daddy started in 50, evidenced by trophies in there, at least 52, 53, all that, and with wins. So, sometimes we say we've won NASCAR races in 7 decades. We have, but they didn't win a Grand National race until 60. So they didn't win one of those, but Daddy won numerous, like 9 convertible races, and let's use Bowman Gray Stadium. Daddy won 29 races there in a modified. So over the time, it goes around, it's 22, 21, and then back. A white car up there is a Fireball Roberts car that they were done with it, so they gave it to Daddy, which is the same one here in this picture. That's Curtis Turner on the outside. When Fireball would show up with a hardtop and Daddy would show up, because there was times where you could run both in a race. It was called a sweepstakes race, hardtops and convertibles. You familiar with the twin qualifiers we have at Daytona?
Yeah.
Run on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
You know why there's 2 races to that?
I'm gonna guess that one of them used to be for convertibles and one of them used to be for.
The very first race ever was convertibles, and hardtops. There was 2 lines.
Didn't know that.
Now they only did it one time because there was such a difference in the speed. With the windshield stuck up, a convertible was bad aerodynamic. Aerodynamically, it didn't have a roof to follow it. So they didn't do that one time, but the format stayed. Fireball was 22 in the hardtop. If Daddy showed up with a convertible and it was a combination race, Daddy would have to change his number. So they changed it to 21. So at some point, it just stayed. Although you got a 16, that's still the 1950. Going up to that the light blue 58 convertible he had, it was 16 again. But he had 2 cars, and sometimes he put somebody else in, like a guy named Jimmy Massey out of Burlington, North Carolina. Mebane, I think it was. And Jimmy would be in a 21 and Daddy being a 16 at Martinsville or something like that.
What is Williams and Wood?
Okay, so to start with, it went in to buy the car was Chris Williams and Daddy. And so that was the start of the race team. So a guy named Johnny Conway was supposed to be the driver. As they get close, Johnny Conway backs out. You don't see him no more. So, well, we got a race car. What are we going to do? So Daddy said, well, I'll drive it. So that's how it started. So and they built a building. They built a shop for like $5,000 or something like that. So around 1958, Chris kind of got tired of it. So there's a canceled check up there for $2,500 for Chris's half. Daddy paid him off, and away he went. But that's a picture of Daddy at age 16. So you talk about different paint, different.
The number font, the iconic number font. How did that happen?
Okay, so that's see that one right there where the G, it's got like it's a capital G with a kind of a big bottom. See right there. See, it's big.
Yeah.
The G is an odd looking G.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's somebody, a painter. Okay, now it's a lowercase g. That's a complete different person. Those twos they're all kind of similar, but it's 2 different people. Because see, that one has humps in the bottom.
Yeah.
That guy didn't have humps, but it's a different person.
Yeah.
Okay, so we move on to that one, 58. Now it's a lowercase g, but it's different from that. Because see, that right there is just like it doesn't have the up part.
Yeah.
You see, it's on those. That's a 56 and that's a 57. 58, it changes. So that's a different sign painter. So early days is one guy. Actually, George Rogers was the first one. Not sure who the next one is. But so this one is getting now, I'll call it the letters, I'll call it more square cut letters and stuff.
Yeah.
Because now you're getting dealerships and things on there, or that's a drive-in restaurant. The car gets ready to go to Daytona in 63 with Tiny Lunch. That's Daddy with it. Fred Lorenzen goes, that's with it new. So look at that. That's what I'll call square cut letters. The N is a capital N. They're all capital letters. Fred Lorenzen goes to the Riverside and rolls it over. So they had to put one or two fenders and a hood and a left door, and beat the roof out to get through the race. If they come home, they fix it. You can look at it here, but it's the same up there.
Yeah.
Now it's round cut letters. Like the E is round.
Huh.
It's a lowercase n. With everything else, capital letters. Same guy did it.
Huh.
So there was no pattern or no.
This is whatever they felt like that day.
Yeah. See, those would all be capital letters, but that one right there has, and that would have been within 6 weeks that the guy did it, but he didn't do it the same. It's not like now where it's got to be this way, but that was those deck lids there, the 21s and 121s. That was the look that they wound up with.
Yeah.
We use something very similar to that today. That's that shop, the Williams and Wood. See, it would have Williams and Wood garage.
Yeah.
And so we termed those coaches, that's a coupe. So he had 4 cars in late 50s. Now he didn't run but one at a time usually, and then as he got closer to 59 or 60, it's when you start putting other people in convertibles typically.
What are your favorite cars in here? You said there was a couple of them.
Well, the 71 Mercury is my favorite, and the ones that Glenn drove.
Is that the George Barris candy apple red? That
It's supposed to be, is what it was intended to be. Did you see that little 2240 Ford?
Yes.
Yeah.
Stainless side, that's got a Mercury motor in it, and it's the one that I decided to tune on it, and so I climbed in the window in the car with him. We're running down the beach to see. I'm going to read the text, see if there's any ounce of gain or whatever, and so we're at full speed, and the tide starts coming in. And so it's only about a half inch deep, the water just flowing in, When we hit that tide, that thing turned sideways. Now I'm looking out the side glass knowing we're going to crash. And it went back this way one time and back this way, and he hit the throttle and pulled it out just straight as air. So I said, Mr. Glenn going to be the race car driver, and I'll just stick to building them. But anyway, that looks white, number 16 convertible.
yeah.
Yeah, he ran really well with that car.
Was there ever a point that you wished that you were driving?
No, I loved to drive them, but I thought it was too dangerous and didn't realize things coming by you at 190 miles an hour on pit road.
Yeah,
was
dangerous
worse than
too.
that.
Did you ever hop in a car at a test session or anything just to feel it out?
Like I said, I used to test them over at Martinsville, carburetors and stuff, and drive them. Yeah, it's a big thrill to press on that accelerator and feel the acceleration.
Just like the way that the thrust feels on you in the seat.
It feels twice as fast inside as it looks outside.
So this car, it was originally a 70 Mercury. And they changed the grille and you call it a 71. But in that time frame, you could run a car for 3 model years. So it ran 70, 71, 72, and 73. Had leaf springs under it, so everybody was going to coil springs on the rear. So it was becoming an obsolete car. Yet it won its last race that it ran, which is the last race of Rockingham in '73. It won that race, and it actually still has what we termed a Galaxy front clip, which is fabricated from a '65 Galaxy. Now, by that time, at least 3 years has gone by that they were already building front clips out of box tubing, like similar to what we have now. So this car ran 3 more years as a old thing, still winning. Pearson won 11 out of 17 in this. No, 11 out of 19, and he set on pole 13 out of 19 times. So this was a pretty good car.
I guess if the geometry's right, the control arms don't know what they're welded to.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So this car, and how this started on all these signatures was David Pearson. He had a stroke followed by a stomach aneurysm, I think it was, and he was not doing well. And it was kind of evident he was not going to leave home anymore. And so we used this car at Darlington for one of the parade things, a pace lap deal. And 2 or 3 weeks later, we still had it in Charlotte. We come up with the idea of taking it to see Pearson. He wasn't going to be able to come see it, so let's take it back to see him. And so this was in 2015. So this was 73. This 40-some years later. We took it to his house, and what we did, we stopped about 3/4 of a mile from where he lived. He lived out in the country, and we unloaded it there. And Eddie and I went on to the house, and Pearson had a huge driveway and with a concreted area, and so we're sitting there. Ricky and Eddie, 2 of his sons, had him sitting out in a chair. And we're talking to him. A couple minutes later, you hear something rumbling, and it was Leonard driving this. And when he drove up, Pearson's like, "What's that?" Well, you'll see in a second. And there was no victory lane. It was as good as that day of seeing him. So they got him up because he couldn't really stand good at that point, and they held him, but he signed a car. And we said, well, we come home, because it was like, okay, because we got a classic car. Do we ruin the hood? No, we didn't ruin the hood. We included history in the hood. Mm-hmm. So we come home. Well, we got to get Daddy and Leonard, 2 Hall of Famers. They built and worked on it. So then Edsel Ford was here one day. Wait a minute, Edsel, sign our car. Because Henry, the Deuce, would have been Henry II would have been the guy that would have been in charge of all these race cars in that time. We get a request to take the car to Indianapolis. They do 6-month displays, basically April to October. They pick a driver each year. Could be Foyt, could be Parnelli, could be Gurney, could be Mario. They do somebody different every year. Could be Rutherford, John Cock, whoever. We send Leonard up, send a car up there, and it goes in the museum, but on race day they pull them all out and run them around in a parade lap for the 500. So earlier that week, they had it's probably the qualifying, Saturday night of qualifying, a week before, sent Leonard up, so he gets AJ, who drove it too. Well, Parnelli Jones had driven it first. So I talked to the lady that run, Ellen Byerly, that run the museum. I said, can you get, what about Parnelli? She said, he comes in here on Thursdays before the 500. Can you get his signature? Well, yeah. I said, send me a picture. get him to do it and send me a picture. So she got Parnelli. On race day, Donnie Allison is driving one of AJ's cars. Donnie drove his car in 71. Parnelli drove it in 70. So got Donnie Allison. So the car goes in the museum, stays the whole year. Comes out the next spring, we get a call from the Gilmore Car Museum in Hickory Corners, Michigan. That's up above Kalamazoo. And they want to recreate the same display for AJ. So we sent it up there for 6 months. And before it left, because Cale Yarborough had driven it, and Dave Marcus actually drove, he didn't drive for us, but he drove in relief for Donnie Allison at Atlanta one time. So he drove his car. So we said, we got to get their signatures too. Mm-hmm. And so before it left, about 2-3 days before it left, we loaded, Eddie called Cale and Marcus, we lined it up. We left here one morning, it was dark when we left. And we went to Darlington, then Florence. And we met Cale at his Honda dealership. So he said, don't even unload it. So he wiggled his way up through, and he signs it. And we leave, we spent about an hour with him. He signed it, we took a deck lid, he signed it, and some pictures, and like a picture up there, he signed it. We arranged to meet Dave Marcus. He was Skyland, North Carolina. So that's about 3/4 of a mile from the Blue Ridge Parkway up in Asheville area is where he lived. So he said the easiest thing was meet him in a rest area. So we pull over in a rest area, and he hops up in there, same thing, and signs his name, and he's got his Goodyear hat on, his wing tips, and then we got done. We drove 4 hours back home, so we were gone 8 hours to get 2 signatures. Then we started, we got to thinking about Uncle Delano. He was a jack man back then, and well, me and Eddie worked on it too. So then Kenneth Martin, he's the one I'm in that Indy picture, was the gas man. He gassed it. And then, well, Kim was helping Mama with the bookwork back then. And then Aunt Crystal, she was doing stuff to help Leonard and Delano help offset time. So we just had anybody that was connected to it sign a car.
That's awesome.
I've never seen that done on any car.
Yeah.
All right, I got another story on that in a little bit too.
Is this car preserved in its last, was it prepped as a backup and then never used again, or what is its current state from?
Okay, so it had leaf springs, and it was going to coil springs, so it was basically outdated, and in particular the front clip, but you were going to have to change everything to make it work there. It was a start over, build a new car. So the picture in the corner over there with that truck, that's got a 73 Mercury on it, but it's in 74, because we run this one all the way to the end of 73. So this one went around 6 months or something for a display show car for Purelator. Then it went into Darlington Museum for like 30 some years.
Oh.
Then we got it back.
Just 30 something years.
33 years ago. So this is basically as raced. Now it won its last race, and that's a 429 Hemi, and it runs. So all that is back like it raced. So let's fast forward to spring of last year. Ray Evernham asked us to take this car down to Amelia Island. You ever heard of the Concours d'Elegance down there? So we took it down there twice. This is not the last one, but it was 10 NASCAR cars. It was 2 Richie Petty cars, an Earnhardt car, a Rusty Wallace, a Jeff Gordon. This one, Bill Elliott's 212 car, a Ramos Stott, if you ever heard of him, Wing Dodge. And there was another Wing Dodge. There was Ray Evernham owned it. Was the first one that ever run 200 mile an hour. When the judge came up, it was 3 judges. Ricky Rudd happened to be one of them, and not that had anything to do with it, but Ricky Rudd, and there was a guy named I believe his name was Mark Moskowitz, and he was the detail person, and there was a lady who was really sharp on it too, and that was their group to judge, I'll call it. And so early on, I asked, what should we do? Should I, have a hood up? Should I wear like the old red, white replica clothes? And the guy, I was basically advised, I ended up wearing a sport coat. And basically they said, you just be near the car, keep your mouth shut unless you're asked a question. And so, okay. So I'm standing there and this guy walks up, this Mark Moskowitz, and he says, can we look under the hood? Why, yes, sir. So I pull it up, and then I start explaining, this is not a show car. I mean, it's not perfect. The paint's beat up, and it's in, but it says race. He says, I know what this car is, son. Okay. So he wants to look in the trunk because it's got a square fuel cell, not a rectangle like whatever. So that puts it in a different time frame.
Yeah, let's look at the trunk.
I'm gonna drop this. Don't step on this and turn your ankle here. Actually, when I raised the trunk, that's when he told me, I know what this car is. So it's got spatter paint, but that's the way they did it. And the more you cleaned it, the crappier it looked. It turned into a smear looking stuff. But that's
water based because it was lighter.
Yeah, what you did, you painted it gray and then shot this. You mixed up paint like too thick, and then that's the spatter. But that kind of covered what I'll term imperfections and stuff like that. But when I raised this, and I was apologizing for the look of it, and he told me that, I know what this car is. So we were like the first or second one they went to. And they went and did all their things, and then you start seeing them start handing ribbons out. And the purple ones was like something about best in class or whatever, but that wasn't the top ones. It was, you got to the red one, and then blue one's the best one. So finally, I had my kid. We had a show car driver take the car down, and my kid went with me. Actually, I let him drive it when we accepted the award, but they came back and they says, here's your blue ribbon. Pulled it out of a bag, like if you went to Lowe's grocery store, those plastic bags. That's what he had to.
Yeah.
Here's your blue ribbon. And so we won the overall of all the race cars.
Huh.
Not because it's pretty, not because I try to explain, because it's hand painted here, but all the dents and stuff. But if we fix it, if we fix the decals and stuff like that, then we ruin it.
Yeah.
Just like the number. See, the number's all skinned up, and see, Eddie will tell you that's the worst door number, worst 21, the worst 2 that's ever been on one of our cars. That's the ugliest 2. I mean, compared to those over there, that's an ugly 2. But if we change it, we run it. So and we got a trophy, and when he got ready to do the awards for all the cars, because it was about 12 to 13,000 people there. It's on a golf course at the Ritz in Amelia Island, and it was probably 225 or 230 cars, and it was a 10 car class. I'll have him leave these lights on. Just leave the rest of them on, Benny. Leave the rest of them on. That you're good. Yeah. But it was 225 cars in it. But this class, we were the top one. So when it came down to going to get to the awards, because they drive by. It's like seating, like if you was at the golf course, like I'll call it pop-up pavilion look, you're up higher and full of people. And so They tell my kid, they says, all right, let's take it around there. So I tell my kid, hop in. So he got to drive it on the golf course around the lake and over, and then we got to basically the first one to parade by all the people and stop and get your picture took and everything. It was good. So that's why this car it's the car of cars in here.
Gum taped to the dash in there.
I was
That's
waiting to
not
ask that.
original, right? That's you guys
No.
did it to recreate it.
Yeah. So Pearson, he used to smoke because there's a cigarette lighter in there, but he switched off to spearmint chewing gum, and he wanted a stick for every 100 miles. So if it's 500 miles, 5 sticks. 400 is 400, 4 sticks. That's a van seat, by the way, that he's setting.
It looks very luxurious. The matching upholstery on the side
that-
bolster.
So it did have shoulder harness and seat belts, but I mean that's all the seat brace was. See, back in the day, Daddy talked about, like on that 61 over there, bench seat. He says if you were on a bumpy dirt track or something, going through the corners, he said you would slide over. And he said so they put some kind of something to hold you to keep you from sliding over, because he said going down a straightaway you'd pull yourself back in place. And so that's what that was. That was not so much for safety, it was to keep you in place, which now we have carbon seats and stuff like that.
I did notice that the seat in this one,
Same thing.
it's like an evolved version of that, and it looks like
It's similar.
somebody made this with the intent for it to look like it matched the seat. Like this looks like a seat that would have come in an expensive car off the
Okay,
factory.
so push that right there. Now, how's that gonna hold somebody in there?
Not that well.
Okay.
It looks cool though. Look at this headrest, nice and fluffy.
Okay, so let's go over here and look at Gen 6 car. So this is a carbon seat. I think Hendrick makes this one. So that's basically, that's, you're not going anywhere. You're locked down. And so this seat, the seat, and then the headrest, and when you fix the foam to fit the driver, and then you cut it out on a CNC machine to make it lighter and contour and everything, you wind up with about 20 grand in the seat. So you're talking about we spent enough in a seat that you could have bought a car from years ago. Engines, you want to look at engines?
Yes, we love engines, and
Okay, so does it matter which order you go in?
no, not really. Anything that's cool, especially things that maybe people weren't allowed to know about when the engine was relevant.
All right, so this is a 351 Cleveland.
Did it race with the hood struts like that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now we got to Talladega, and for some reason it was like, it's almost like it would run out of air, start skipping. And we always wanted to take it out, but we never did, just to see. But no, we raced with that in there like that. So this is 351 Cleveland. It had what would be termed high port heads. So it's got a block. It's easier to look over here. It's got an inch wide block of aluminum that basically you mill the head away and put that on, and the exhaust port, instead of coming out doing that, it now went out like that.
So that's something that you made yourself.
Well, that was a Holman Moody thing. They did it.
Interesting.
And at some point, so the Hemi, the last time we run a Hemi would have been March of 74. They run 2 races, Daytona and Rockingham, with a 429 Hemi, and it had tapered spacers in it that they kept reducing the size, and it basically choked it down to where it wouldn't run. So that's when we went to 351. So early on they had the high port heads, and at some point they outlawed them, and then later at the end they let them come back again. But when they outlawed them, Leonard would take the cast iron heads and make little slugs in them, machineless slot, and fix a slug, and then the header would hold it in place, and then that sort of raised it back up. But there again, all that was legal to do.
It's cool that the air intake it still has the factory cowl grate grill on there for whatever hot air would get pulled in or something nuts.
All right, so let's go. You got the Hemi then, right? Right here.
Well, there's something on here that's
All right, so let's look.
a neat little trick.
Well, the valve covers and manifold and maybe the water pump was all made out of magnesium back in the day to be lighter. And that's what that half scale engine back there that he's working on.
Huh.
It's a replica of that.
Okay. Did this car still have a VIN number? Or was it past that?
Okay, you can't, it's on it, it's painted. That says HM00004S. That's Holman Moody with the 0 meaning 1970. And then the serial number of the car will be 004. And the S means it has some kind of repair work or an alteration.
With those other drivers in here, is this the era where Holman Moody would prepare a car and it would go out the door, then it would get returned and reprocessed and somebody else would drive it?
More like that time frame.
That's what this was?
More like in the earlier 60s.
Okay.
Because there's one time that we went a race at Bowman Gray Stadium or something with Marvin Panch, and he's driving a yellow car, which would have been Nelson Stacy's, and it's got a door and a fender or something like that, white, where they had primed it, just hadn't finished it. And that tells me that either they tore up their own car, Daddy tore up their own car, but wanted to go run this race and didn't have time, so they went and borrowed one, run it, and after the race, give it back to them. So now that's a real car. So now we're talking replicas. So this one's a 427. This would be termed a center oiler, low riser manifold, low riser heads.
When did they start using fabricated tubular headers instead of the cast iron?
Somewhere 65-ish or 6-ish, I think. Because that modified over there would have had them on it, and that was built in 66. So I'm pretty sure it's more than that. Because see, those cast iron headers are back breakers. they are heavy, and a 427 had long ones. A 390 or a 406 had short ones. So you got, now this is a 406, so really it's the same block. You could change it to the bore or stroke, probably the stroke on it. But this one, in that time frame, had the gold valve covers and stuff. But there again, it would be it would have the shorty, they called them shorty headers.
Do you know about how much power these were making back then? Oh, okay. There you go. Like, let's put an FAQ right on the hood. How much power?
Okay, so so the 390 that's in the Starliner, it looks like that one. I don't think you need a picture of it, but it looks like that one. So 390 had 375 horsepower. 406 had 385. 427 had 410 with a single 4-barrel. If you put 2 4-barrels on it, which you weren't allowed to race, but you could buy it as an option for when you bought the cars, they talk about putting the manifold and carburetors in the trunk when you bought it. It would have 425 with 2 carburetors, but they weren't allowed to run 2 carburetors until closer on to 67, 68-ish time frame.
Is that by the time you got to this era, you didn't want people knowing how much power you had, so you put the cubic inch on the hood?
It wasn't. And there again, let's call it, that's advertised. That's what Ford would advertise. We talk about trying to sell cars.
Yeah.
Win on Sunday, sell on Monday. That was part of the advertisement of what the horsepower was. So at some point it's probably when the small blocks started coming in. Like see, Mario Rossi went to Daytona with one, some kind of Dodge with a 305 in it for a Daytona 500. Now see, they could run bigger, those tubes, the tapered tapered tubes in the manifold, they could run bigger ones. That's what they did to these, was choke them down over time until, okay, you don't want to run a 429 anymore. So it's probably to distinguish a small block to a big block. That's my guess.
That would make
But
sense.
see, all right, so another thing, back in the day, 68, 69, don't quote me on the exact number, but if you had a 427, you had to weigh something like 9.36 pounds per cubic inch. So that was basically 4,000 pounds. Now, if you decided you wanted to run a 396 cubic inch, which they didn't make a 396 in a Ford like that, it was a 390 or a 406, but 396 cubic inches was 3,700. So you're 300 pounds lighter. Now, if you chose to go on even more, down to 374, you can knock off another 200. So you could have one guy 500 pounds lighter than the other,
Wow.
but less motor. So then you would start to run on a shorter tracks. You would take the weight advantage and drop the cubic inches. Unless you were some of those cheaters and you got both.
Were there any stories of that you recall growing up? Any like weird tricks or getting air on those tapered spacers or anything like that was figured out?
One famous story of Junior Johnson was, he always said the only thing that beat cubic inches was cubic feet. You know, so he was talking about bigger engines and stuff like that, but nah, I mean, just everybody just worked hard. All right, so let's go back over to this one. So Ray Everingham owned this car. Now, let's say that's when the car was brand new in '66, and it's a little bit, color's a little bit off, but you can take it outside, it's good. So Ray loaned this to us 2 or 3 times, and one of the times was Daddy's birthday party. And after we got done, we were getting ready to take it back, and Uncle Ray Lee was in here that day. And he's passed away now, but he lived 15 to 20 minutes from here. Uncle Delano lives near here, and Daddy and Leonard were in here all the time. I saw Uncle Ray Lee. I said, we could get him to sign this thing just like we did that. And I called Ray. I said, listen, I need to know right quick. You know, I can get all 4 of the original Wood brothers that worked on his car, you know, to sign it. And he didn't know, you know, he didn't want to disturb it, whatever. I said, trust me, it'll be fine. So I get Uncle Ray Lee. So then I get Uncle Delano, Leonard, and Daddy. Donnie Allison comes up here for the birthday party. He drove it. I get him. And then we did this a couple of weeks ago, or in the last month. Kenny worked on his car, and Aunt Crystal was part of the stuff that went on too. Looking back, now that we own the car, Uncle Ray Lee's passed away, Daddy's passed away. That's invaluable for us, to have done that, and then now we own our car back again. Now, we talked about if we ever did anything like repainted or something, then what I would do, I would mask this off, never lose this white. No matter what we did, if we painted it pink or green, you would never lose that right there. And see, I've covered all the names just like that car over there. You're never gonna lose them.
Yeah, that is cool, because when Ray's still on this and you came back with signatures on the roof, did he say anything about that?
No, I mean, because like I say, I asked him before he did it.
Oh, you did?
I assured him that this is the right thing to do. And he was okay. And then once he realized what I'd done, you know, yeah, that was good. Because you're not gonna, again, if I wanted to do it now, I couldn't get 2 of them. But that was the 4 originals that worked on it. Actually, that was the 5 people that worked on that car.
That's kind of our mindset for how we find stuff to make videos about, is who do we need to talk to right now that we might not be able to talk to in 10 years.
Okay. I mean, you never know. You're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah.
So when we got it back, there's a few things that we decided to put back a little closer. One being the tires. This is original type tires that was on it. They look funny, but that's what's on it.
Where do you find those?
Eddie found them. Mike Beam was a crew chief of ours back like with Elliott Saturdays early on. I was talking to him one day, and Eddie, because he rebuilt a replica of something, or put a car back for Bill Elliott back together. So they're called M&H Race Masters. And you can look at this picture up here.
Oh yeah.
So when I got it back from Ray, it had what I'll call low profile Goodyear Eagles on it. Okay, Goodyear Eagles didn't exist. This was 20 years before that. So we found them. I think we were in Asheville, North Carolina. I wanted like $400 for them. Sent somebody right out and got them. Yeah, it took us about 6 or 8 months before we got around to putting them on. But the other thing we did, this has a hood, but we're quite proud of our little Weber carburetor setup here. So we made little balls to go in them. So it run with fuel injection or Weber carburetors back in the day. And when we got it back, it had a carburetor on it. It didn't ever run with a carburetor. So anyway, Leonard fixed a brand new set of headers for it. He sawed out the flanges and cut the tubes, did the whole thing.
Leonard made those headers?
Yep.
How long ago did he do that?
In the last month.
He made, like, he's, well, how old is he now? Like 88?
89.
89 years old, and he made those headers?
That don't matter.
I'm just, like, there's 89-year-olds who don't know what day it is. He's out here making headers. These things are...
He made those headers in the last, let's put it this way, when we talked about, because this is actually a 390, it should be a 427. So I arranged to buy, when we were in Loudon, there's a guy in Loudon named Jay Cushman. He's in Maine, probably 2 hours above Loudon Racetrack. I sent my show car driver, and we picked up a 427 block, side oiler block, with what's called medium riser heads, with a Holden Moody manifold, with these Webers on it. And we're going to build the correct engine to make it 100% like it should be. In the meantime, there again, you would change the stroke or the bore to get your cubic inches. So that's the block. If I didn't tell you it was a 390, you wouldn't know whether it's 390 or 400 or whatever. So with that being said, we still want it correct. Getting this 427 done, it's going to take 2 or 3 months just to get pistons for it. So that was all out. So he said, let me just stick that on there and see if it'll work. So he goes and puts that on there, and he hadn't touched a Weber carburetor, I think it was 55 years. He gets them running, goes around, away he goes. So the car didn't have seat belts in it for some reason when we got it, like when they restored it. So we put seat belts in it last week, and basically it's ready to do whatever we need to now. And once we get that 427, let's call it 3 months on that, then we'll pull the valve covers and the manifold and the carburetors off and the headers, and then swap the block out, swap the long block, I'll call it.
Because for certain, if anybody is within any reasonable driving distance, whatever that's defined as by them, of this place, they should come here, because this is just packed full of neat stuff everywhere.
It's a living museum.
It is. It's a functional museum. And those are the best ones.
Well, like I say, this right here was rolled back there where that forklift sat. Oh wait a minute. All right, so
is that the Foyt sign that somebody stole and gave back to you?
that one right there, yeah. So Uncle Delano, he would put a dollar sign on. What he would do, he'd be standing on pit wall, or like looking, like turn 3 whenever they would come in sight. Because back then it was not quite as many cars or wasn't campers in the infield like that. So whenever he could see and was sure that we were going to win, he'd put a dollar sign on it and run out there and hold it up. So we had him. We took all those. They were all originals. See, there's Gurneys and Foyts over there, and Jarrett one. They're all over. We took them down and washed them, because they looked like the Foyt one, like smeared like. And we had him redo them. So That's the one where the guy at age 14 stole it at Daytona, and then 50 years later, whatever it was, got feeling bad about it, said it should go home.
So the dollar sign was before there was a radio that was, so they knew the race was going to be over and they were going to win.
Well, they knew with the white flag and the checkered flag, but that was Delano's signal.
Huh.
That was Delano's celebration, let's call it, in a good way. But that one, how that remained not wiped off after 50 years in somebody's garage or basement or somewhere. How did it last? But
Maybe it's a good thing he stole it, because it probably would have got wiped off and cleaned.
Well, we would have. I'm sure Daddy would have kept them because he kept all the others.
Why does Turner's have $3 signs?
Okay, so there was a men's magazine, I'm sure it's gone by now, called True. They had won Indy. So this magazine wanted to do a story on Daddy and Leonard and them, the winning pit crew from Indy. And see, actually, Uncle Ray Lee was part of it. Uncle Clay was not. But Uncle Ray Lee had already quit by then, or retired, and Clay moved in, so Clay's taking his picture. So that's the guys that was at Indy, except for it would have been Uncle Ray Lee. So they began getting the phone calls, people coming to take pictures. So they cleaned the shop up. They started asking about glove size, hat size. They didn't know what was coming. These people, they fly into Greensboro or whatever and ride through the country and find a tobacco barn. Like on a 2-lane road, like a road that didn't even have a line on it. It was, a little road. And so they come up here and say, okay, we got what we want. We want to go to this tobacco barn. Well, okay, they were surprised. So they took, that's the sign right there. And so what they did, they wanted 3. They didn't want just one. For the magazine, for the look of it, they wanted 3 $3 signs. So Delano never did that except for that. Well, that stayed like that. So that's why we had him, when he did that, when we had him do 3 on it. So it was used in that picture, as well as a 65 Ford. That's a jack right there. That's a jack handle right there, which would have been that jack probably right there. Leonard is holding an air wrench in one shot. So that's what that was for.
You got the best answer for stuff. I could ask you the most obscure question about that, and there's like here's everything that ever happened about this.
Every picture has a story.
Whose snack was the moon pie?
So let's just say let's use the 70s, when we call them pack of nabs, the cheese crackers, whatever. We had little coconut pies and moon pies, and back then, that might have been 25 cents. So we'd say, okay, we'd send a guy to get it. I'd go get it sometimes. All right, give me $1, give me $1, give me $1. So you'd have about $4, and you go buy a sack of stuff. Mm-hmm. It was just, that right there has been in there way too long to think about eating. But I did it just because that's the way we did it. We had a drink machine, and that was the break, whatever.
Yeah, stuff like that makes people happy. The little things.
There you go, another answer for everything. I don't think we've asked you anything yet, and you were like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. Never heard that before. No idea. It hasn't happened yet.
Okay, so that pit board right there is that pit board right there. And where Daddy would drag it up off the wall, it's got that cut in it. So at some point, put a piece of tape over it. Well, I mean, I'll put it like this. I guess I know our history. I ask questions, ask Daddy, ask Leonard, ask Eddie, ask Mama. Mama knew any and everybody. If you were in this county, she knew who it was, who the grandparents were, who the kids are, everything. Kind of go back with whatever I remember them saying.
You have a good memory. That's a lot to remember. Was Walter Wood's mailbox. What is that from?
That was from the home place. So Daddy had that. So that was the dad, J. Walter. So that's him in 1925 right there, inside the trees. That was their grandfather. Now he was, I think he died, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere 68 to 72, I guess. I was like 14 or 15 when he died, I think. So I didn't really know him like I knew Mom's dad.
From stories you've heard or anything, was he supportive of the racing when they were starting, or did he not like it?
So the story on that would be, they fixed the car at a guy's garage, and after the race he took it back to the house, and the joke was, he said, don't unload that thing here at home. And then once they did, and it was more like, well, if you're gonna do it, you need to do this, you need to do that. So, you know, it was quickly got over it with. And then this was my grandma's lawnmower. That's what the heat or the fire, or because he didn't use the fire extinguisher, like it'll smother itself out.
There's an interesting story behind why this video is so long. It was a week after we filmed this, we went to the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony on Main Street for Roger Penske and Edsel Ford. Well, Eddie and Glen Wood were there.
So was Leonard.
Yeah, Leonard was there too. I didn't get to talk to him though. Oh. Only you did. Like, was it Eddie who came up to us at the end and asked if they could have a copy of this video on a flash drive to put in a vault for their own history? Because I guess nobody's ever gone through the entire museum, what they said, like thing by thing, that detailed. And I thought, well, I haven't edited the video yet. Normally I would pick and choose what's in there to keep it around an hour. But for this, I thought, knowing what they wanted it for, we are going to leave everything in there. And however long it is what it is. It's now a piece of Wood Brothers history that we're happy to contribute to, because all of them are awesome. Like, you got your own special tour at the beginning.
I told Ed about my Mustang, and I think we were talking about how I wanted to put a 427 in it, and then we went over and started talking about the 427 FE that they had in the museum, which is really cool because those FEs are really rare.
And then you went off on all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, then we went on an adventure and talked about stuff that wasn't talked about with you and stuff.
Yeah, I almost thought, dang, I should have given her a camera, and then we could have just had two different videos, and then you could have voted which one was better. Logan's video with Eddie as a tour guide, or with me and Len. That would have been funny.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to going back there and hopping in the car and going to see the old home place with the birch tree, and where the other shops were, to kind of fill you in on the history of the evolution spatially wise. Is that even
I mean, we could probably go there in 2 weeks because the leaves are falling now.
Yeah, that's what we had to wait for, is for the leaves to be gone so you could see the actual branch where that thing was. If you watched this entire video and haven't subscribed yet, make sure you are. Hit the thumbs up. It helps recommend the next video to you. And if you want to support the channel, you can go to stapletonautowrks.com. You can find the hat that I'm wearing. It looks like a old something redacted hat. And
you can get this shirt. We just restocked the Winston shirt, or not the Winston shirt, the boom tube shirt.
Yeah. We have this one in every size now?
I don't know.
Most of them.
Yeah, we probably have most sizes. I'm not exactly sure.
stapletonautowrks.com. Check it out. You guys are awesome. And
we got more sticker packs.
Oh yeah, we have these in stickers too, like
Yeah.
with the eagle and stuff on there.
Yeah, they're really cool.
We got some really cool videos coming up. We got Harry Gant, Waddell Wilson, among others that are currently pending. We've been running wide open.
I pack all of the orders here at my desk. As you can see, I like Mustangs. And I have one back there, and anybody who tips me, it helps me with my Mustang fund. So if you want to keep that in there, you can. If not, that's cool. Also,
Yeah, why are you doing a bunch of wiring? You're
because Shelby is an a-hole, and she chewed up her water fountain, so I'm trying to rewire it so that it'll work.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay $30 for another one. This is the second time she's done it.
Yeah, she's doing this thing where she likes to eat cords. Why do you do this?
She only does it if we're not home. She would never do it when we're home.
He didn't use the fire extinguisher, like it'll smother itself out. And we closed the door and it was just smoking here. So all this is repainted because everything behind these little dimples was white. Now they're all black. So this room is clearly darker than it used to be, but it ruined these tools, ruined everything in here.
That had to be terrifying to witness.
Well, you know, Danny was like, okay, because it was a small fire, so okay, we're not going to burn the building down. But we should have used that because it's got a nozzle right there, and a nozzle over here, and it would run for something like 40 seconds, which would give it time for it was wired to shut the fan off, which it took 15-20 seconds for the fan to shut off, and that would like seal the room because you would be sucking everything out. So you start pumping that, it would run for 40 seconds, and it would have knocked it out, but we didn't do that.